Alright everyone, there's a funny article, link in the description, archived of course. Are Trump or Kamala Christians? Genuine Christians, like practicing. I can tell you my opinion on both of them, their religious and spiritual beliefs. This is just my opinion, and also a little bit of a civic backstory to the United States in general. I do not believe that either Trump or Kamala Harris are particularly religious. Trump can hold up the Bible all he wants. He's a boardroom cutthroat at the end of the day. Kamala Harris doesn't seem to have any particular intrinsic spiritual beliefs whatsoever. She seems to be more of a dedicated agnostic who just doesn't care about the concept of religion. Neither of these are a problem, by the way. I do believe that Trump, at the very least, believes in generally the Christian God, but he's not a religious man. I've often talked about the trifecta within the spiritual world. You've got religion, you've got spirituality, and then you've got theism. These three things can be separable. For instance, you may be highly religious, but you don't believe in God. There are plenty of people that are praying in the pews that don't really truly believe in God. You can be a theist, but be irreligious and anti-spiritual and be like, well, there's a God. Okay, that's perfectly fine. You don't go to church. You don't have any particular, what we would call generally supernatural beliefs or anything like that. You can be like me. I'm apatheistic, for example. I do not care whether there's a deity. I am highly spiritual. I believe truly in the occult. When I'm telling you about the occult, I ain't lying. I'm not fibbing with anyone when I say that I have genuine spiritual beliefs, but I'm also irreligious. I would say leaning towards anti-religious because I don't believe in organized religion. I think that it's a cancer. I do not care whether Trump or Harris are, Christian or anything like that. I don't expect them to conform to my beliefs, and I don't expect that they believe that I should conform to theirs. I consider them both to be generally irreligious. I think Trump probably leans more towards a bit more religious. But it's quite clear when he goes to church, he believes in the Christian God. I know that. And he probably has some spiritual beliefs. But I don't think he really cares. It's more pomp and circumstance. With Kamala Harris, it's more like, I don't know exactly where she lies on the theism scale. Probably more apatheistic, ironically enough. I don't think she has any spiritual beliefs because that requires intelligence. And she appears to be bereaved of that. What I would say, though, is it doesn't really matter, and here's why. When our nation was founded, and I believe strongly in the civic underpinnings of the United States, and do believe that it is a divinely blessed nation, our founders were not religious individuals. Were they Christians? Generally, yes. They believed in the Christian God. They were generally theists. They had certain spiritual beliefs. They used to debate all sorts of weird supernatural stuff in churches and stuff like that. They were debating over the existence of extraterrestrials. Thomas Jefferson was a big one for that. He loved comparative religion, for example. But they weren't particularly religious in the sense of going to church and doing the ritualism thing. And it goes back to this debate that was waging at the time, but really came to a head in the middle of the 19th century, after the founders largely were gone. It goes to the high versus low church debate. The high church is ritualism. That is Romanism. And it doesn't matter whether it's Catholicism or one of its offshoots, or it infected Protestant movements as well. It doesn't really matter. Then there's the low church movement. In the low church, typically, people were left to pray on their own. I mean, they went to church, but it was a communal event. Oftentimes, it involved food and stuff like that. It was a communal event. It's because, your little tiny community in, New England in 1750 or something like that, there's like 100 families that are there. Where's the meeting place? It's the fucking church. So they would go to the church, and they would have like a picnic or something like that. And they read from the Common Book of Prayer, actually, more than from the standard King James Bible. They actually had an entirely different book. It was basically a giant hymnal. I've got a copy of it. My grandfather, I think, was a low churcher. I mean, he wouldn't have had a Book of Common Prayer if he didn't have a copy of the Bible. I have a feeling he's one of the last remnants, one of the last shards of New England low churchery. And when we say low, it means more like the laity, the people, as opposed to a top-down ritual. The gripe, and I actually edited a work on the topic. It's fascinating, by the way, to me. I never knew this until, the last couple of years. The high church is basically popery. So stained glass windows, the priest is the one reading out, very ritualistic. You have to kneel at a certain time, you have to rise at a certain time, you have to sing this certain song. That's not the way that the founders saw the Christian religion. They saw the Christian religion as much more personal, much more individualized, and so the idea was keep God in your heart and stuff like that. Now, I may not be a theist, but it sounds like a superior system overall, because that person then is compelled to do soul searching in and of themselves and arrive at their religious conclusion. Can this cause problems? Certainly. Mainly that the church doesn't get as many tithes because there's less control and authoritarianism. The founders fucking hated authoritarianism. They didn't expect anyone to involuntarily show up at a church or something like that. They expected people to do their own penance, do their own charity, to figure it out themselves, so to speak. They perhaps pseudo-optimistically believe that the average person was able to do so. Now, for some people in the world, there is organized religion. That is, that they're not capable of maybe understanding the spiritual without guidance. But for some people, including the founders, they're capable of figuring it out themselves. They don't need organized religion. It's completely unnecessary. Effectively, you have a dichotomous system. Well, technically trichotomous. You have people that are completely irreligious. They don't give a fuck about the spiritual in any way. Then there are people that sort of figure it out themselves. That's like the 10%ers. And then you have everyone else that needs organized religion to have a spiritual experience, and people do need that. I do not believe in hardline atheism, for example. I dabbled with that in the past, but it's kind of vacuous in nature. I have nothing but respect for genuine Christians. The problem is that a lot of them, they think that Christianity is, hey, I went to church this Sunday. Ta-da! I read a couple of verses from the Bible. There's a lot of dust on it, but that's about it. That appears to be their religion, so to speak. The same is true of other religions. By the way, I watched like a documentary. It was years ago, probably 10 years by now. And it was actually about the Bhagavad Gita and about Hinduism. And there was one Hindu scholar, I mean, he believed in, the religion itself, like Shiva and Ganesh and so forth. And he was complaining, actually, on this documentary. He was like, well, these fucking foreigners, and he didn't use that language, of course, these foreigners know more about our religion than we do. And that's because there are people that are actually studying it. But a lot of people within society don't really study the spiritual or the religious aspect of things. Or they don't even comprehend the concept. Well, is there a god or gods or something? A cosmic force, a divine creation source? Or does it not exist? Myself, I think I'm leaning towards there must be some sort of creative force unless we're living in AI, actually, at this point. That does not make me a theist, though, because I don't prescribe any individual god or pantheon or anything like that. That's why I'm apatheistic. It's more like, I don't know, and so at some point I'm just going to say, I don't care. Are they Christians? Who gives a fuck? That's about all. Peace out.